Welcome to another episode of Worthy Ones, the video series where I take all my newest #1 comics that I read for the week and deem them worthy or not worthy. Guys, I'm Mike Spider Slayer. Welcome back to Comic Book Corner 2.0. Before we dive into it, guys, I got a quick shout out for a new Kickstarter from JW Storytelling. Check out The Legend of Kyyden. The story? The kingdom of Solaire is under siege from the invading Ashen army. King Damien is running through the halls of his once grand castle, now full of flames, death, and destruction, dispatching foes along the way as he focuses on his goal to reach his wife and newborn son. However, before he can secure their safety, Damien will have to contend with a mysterious foe wielding the flames of darkness and a fierce grudge. So if you guys love this type of story, go on to Kickstarter, back it today, guys. And if you love independent creators, definitely back it. As little as $5 will definitely get you a digital copy. However much you want to donate, it definitely takes this project a long way. I will leave a link in the comments section pinned. Awesome Kickstarter. Good luck, Jesse. The link is in the description box below and in the pinned comics. All right, guys, so let's get started with the first comic book this week. In Hell We Fight Issue 1, written by John Layman. This book is a $3.99 price point, and when I put this on the FOC and I saw I was getting this book this week, I'm like, why did I put this book on my list? It's because it's written by John Layman. If you guys are not familiar with John Layman, he was the writer of Chew. He wrote a series that came out a little bit after that. I can't remember for the life of me what the name of that book was, but this is the reason why I picked this one up. Let's check out the artwork inside. The artwork is fine. You know, it's this book that takes place in hell, and you would think that it would be maybe a little bit more gory or a little bit more darker, but it's a book that's not really, I guess, intended for that, right? Yes, it has a little bit of of that darker feel because it takes place in hell and all these characters in hell, but it has this cutesy, cartoony feel to it at the same time. Now, what happens in this book is we find this kid right from the start who does this experiment on frogs, and his teacher wound up saying, you know, that's not what this was about. It wasn't a science experiment. It was supposed to be this book report, and his name is Xander Waterford. And what happens is, ever since he got this F on this book report, he hates frogs. So he squishes frogs, he kicks frogs, he kills frogs, he does all these things with frogs, and then all of a sudden he winds up going to the Frog King, right? And then he winds up getting killed by the Frog King, and he winds up going to hell. So he's one of the first people that you come across in this comic book, and you see his story. Then you come across all the other characters, which was kind of cool to see, you know, their little stories on how they got to hell. And they have this whole mission where they're trying to get ice cream, and they abduct this ice cream truck in hell, and then all of a sudden what they come across is they come across this angel, and this angel was abducted by these goblins or these things, right? And this is what happens at the end, and you're kind of just like, oh, okay. I'm gonna deem this book not worthy. Even though this book wasn't a half bad read, it's just not my thing. I can't see myself caring about this book 2 to 3 issues from now, right? Again, John Layman is a very creative writer. I'm gonna give this book a C. It's just not my thing, guys. I really couldn't get attached to these characters. The first kid was kind of cool, but then we got into all these other characters. It's like, who cares? So, yeah, you might want to pick this up, but for me, it's going to be a pass. Star Wars Return of the Jedi, The Empire, Issue 1, written by Jody Hauser. Now, this book I was kind of excited about because I was like, oh, there's this guy who's getting recruited to the Empire, and, you know, he's going to be on Endor War, and maybe he's going to have a significant role and something is going to happen, and it kind of doesn't play out that way. But before we dive into it, let's check out the artwork. The artwork was fine. It wasn't like the best artwork in the world. You know, you got your stormtroopers, you got this Imperial in here, we get to see Endor, we get to see the Death Star 2 in there, which was kind of cool. So this did have some cool, you know, Star Wars vibes in there for sure. You know, remind you of, you know, Return of the Jedi. So I was kind of excited, and I was on the fence about picking this book up because it was a very hefty week, but I felt like I really wanted to talk about this on today's video. So this is kind of not what I was expecting, right? But however, it's about this guy. His name is Rilo Grenith, and he's like some Imperial, I guess, IT guy, right? And so they recruit him. The Empire winds up buying his father's like business or whatnot, and he has to do a job for the Empire, obviously on Endor. And I felt bad for this guy because he winds up getting picked on by the people around him. He winds up coming across an Ewok. He gets picked on by this Ewok, and this guy has nothing but bad luck. And his whole goal here was to try to just make friends and fit in and whatnot. And it shows you how much of a bunch of assholes that the Imperials actually are. So you really felt bad for this kid. It almost felt like an after-school special where it's like, don't bully others, right? But at the end of the day, you wind up finding out that this kid winds up getting arrested because he supposedly broke law, and he gets thrown into a prison, and he's thrown into prison with all these other guys that could be rebels, and he winds up getting along with those guys. Okay, so it was kind of fine. So I'm gonna deem this book, for me, it was worthy. I found it entertaining. It was kind of cool. But for you, I'm gonna say, I don't know if you're gonna want to spend however much, $5 on this comic book, but I found it entertaining. For me, if I had to, you know, go back in time, I would still pick this up. I don't buy too many Star Wars comic books, so I'm gonna give this book a C+. I thought it was okay, man. It was fun. I just kind of felt sorry for this kid. X-Men Before the Fall, Mutants First Strike, issue 1. Now, I always try a lot of different X-Men books, and this is obviously some type of prelude to the Fall of X that is getting ready to come up, and I'm obviously going to read that. But when it comes to X-Men, in very many ways, I find myself lost of kind of what's going on in the world of X-Men. Obviously, I know about Krakoa, the Resurrection Protocols, but all this stuff leading up to this whole Fall of X stuff, I'm just like really not into it. This kind of felt like more of a Marauders book. This book is written by Steve Orlando. The artist is done by Valentina Pina or Piniti. I don't know. Sorry. Here's the artwork right here. So it kind of looks like that. Some art pages are better than others. It wasn't my favorites, and it wasn't also my favorite story either. We get to see this thing all lead up to this Fall of X event that's about to happen. I felt that this was a little bit of a drawn out issue for me. I actually felt myself nodding out at a couple of times, and I had to start over and reread it again. It just wasn't all that interesting for me. It just felt like this town was being sabotaged by a bunch of Orcus people, and the mutants are getting the fall for this. Some of the characters that are in here are Angel and Cyclops, Jean Grey, Penis, Tempo, Triage, Archangel, Iceman, Lucas, which is Bishop, Storm, and Thunderbird. So those are some of the characters that are in there, and we have the X-Men. This town gets basically destroyed. These people are looking for help, and the X-Men are there to try to pick up the pieces, and a lot of people are obviously in this hate group situation where they can't stand the mutants. It kind of falls in line with a lot of what's going on in today's world. So I'm gonna deem this book not worthy. I just wasn't into it, guys. it just, for me, for when it comes to the X-Men, it's like, do you need this to really get into the Fall of X thing? I guess that's what you got to look forward to here, or look at the question that I'm asking you here. And it really isn't. You don't need this to, I guess, get into that event that's coming up here. And then if I had to grade this book too, I'm going to grade this one a C-. I mean, it was okay at times, and the artwork was okay at times, but it was just nothing different that I haven't read with the X-Men, or something that would actually get me excited for the upcoming event. Steelworks Issue 1, the newest super book to be released by DC Comics, another one. But let me tell you guys, I think Michael Dorn, who's the writer, did a nice job with this, and Sammy Bassary is the artist. So let's check out the artwork in this book. I thought it looked really good. The colors pop, all the super characters look really nice. We have Lana Lang in this comic book, which I didn't know she was a thing, with John Henry Irons. I did not know that. But check out this 2-page spread here. I thought this book looked like $1 million. And again, it's only a $3.99 comic. For a new issue 1, I think that's a deal in today's comics. So what made this comic pretty good? Well, if you were looking for an action-centric issue, that's not going to happen. This is a character-driven story, all right? Because it's an issue 1, and you got to know who John Henry Irons actually is, right? And what his mission is, like what his MO is, okay? And I thought it was quite interesting. The story has to be about him saying we don't have to be dependent on all the Supermans or all the Superwomen or all the supers. Let's just call them that, right? Yes, they are needed when we have life-threatening issues, but my company exists because we need the humans to take care of themselves. We can create technology that they can use for themselves instead of us bailing them out every single issue. They become too dependent on us. It's like society using a cell phone for every little thing, right? Whereas one time we lived as a society without those things. So that's kind of like the analogy that he used when you read this comic book. The characters in this book overall were excellent. Like Lana is with John Henry Irons, which I never even knew that. When did they come together? Just let me know in the comments below. I don't know too much about Steel. And then we have Natasha Irons, which is his niece. And again, you get to see a lot of that explaining back and forth of what his mission objective is in the comic. This definitely surprised me. I thought this was a really good comic, and I'm going to deem this book worthy. So at the end of the day, I love the character growth here. I love the artwork here. It's definitely worthy of picking up a second issue to see where this book goes. And if I grade this comic, I'm going to grade this one a solid B. Yes, I would love a little bit more action in this comic, but there wasn't all that much, and you get introduced to a villain at the end who is going to become a villain, and some guy, like, I don't know, threatened this guy to be part of his organization. He said no. He zaps him with some weird power. He gets naked at the end, and he's like, "Wow, what's going on?" That seemed a little weird, but the overall main story here was pretty badass. Deadpool Bad Blood Issue 1, done by yours truly, Rob Liefeld. That's right, guys. This book is a $4.99 comic book, and if you love Rob Liefeld, then you're going to love this comic book. The artwork is what you can expect, right? So we have all the crazy pages, all the insane panels, funny looking faces. Yeah, that's the way Wolverine looks. I mean, I don't know what to get here. I just, his drawings are just, they're just weird for me, man. There's sometimes where they're better than others, but he loves to draw characters with, like, no lips. Like, he doesn't believe in lips. He doesn't believe in feet. A lot of his torsos and stuff are just all square. It's just, what can you expect from Rob Liefeld at this point? But there's this nostalgia thing. It's like, whenever Rob Liefeld comes out with something, you almost got to check it out, and you got to see what it looks like and what the story is about. Now, for some reason, I must have missed Deadpool Bad Blood, because this is a sequel to this story. So when I was reading it, I kind of felt lost. I'm like, what's going on in this comic book? And there was obviously Deadpool, Cable, and Wolverine in here, and they had to rescue, I guess, who is it? Thumper's creator, and so they took their creator and they protected him from Thumper, and I feel like I'm talking about a Disney movie or something like Bambi or whatnot. And there was just this weird banter back and forth. You know, Deadpool was okay at times the way he was written, but there was just a lot of like talking heads going back and forth. There was some action in the very beginning, and then you get Wolverine that gets pissed off at Deadpool, and you know, it's just, I don't know, it's just weird. It's not worthy for me. It really isn't. I just wasn't really attached by it whatsoever. I'm kind of like, why do I need this in my life? But again, if you're a Deadpool fan, you might want to pick this book up if you want some weird floating heads like this. I don't know, man. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to give this one a D+. It just wasn't for me. But hopefully you enjoy it. Street Fighter versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or I should say that reversed. So when it comes to today's, worthy ones, guys, I feel like it's been a little bit disappointing. The books have been a little bit underwhelming. So I'm hoping that this is a strong finish to the video. And I had my hopes up for this one, right? Because the last Street Fighter book that came out was very underwhelming. There was no action. It just seemed like very political with Ken trying to create a tournament. So when I got this book in my hands and I opened it up, right, and I saw this on the first page, I'm like, okay, we're in business right here. So the artwork looked really good. We got Guile and Raphael fighting each other right from the start in the tournament, and I'm like, good, we're golden. Paul Allure is the writer here. The artist is done by Ariel Medel. And I love the way the artwork looks. You got all these different characters in here, and the colors are bright and vibrant. There's great facial expressions in the comic, so I was definitely excited for that. The characters that are in this book is Chun-Li, we got Guile, we got Ken Masters, Michelangelo, Ryu, Donatello, all the turtles. You got Jenica, and so you got all those characters in here. And it opens up with a fight, like I said, and really who's running this whole tournament is Bison, and obviously he wants to control one of the turtles, right? And so he's trying to keep track of what's going on in the tournament. Now there are some strange little googly eyes going on with Michelangelo and Chun-Li in this comic book, which I felt was a little weird, and Michelangelo didn't want to fight her, and we saw Chun-Li obviously dominate a fight in this comic book. I thought that was a little bit off, but overall, this comic was definitely worthy. I had a lot of fun with it. Yes, it's a little bit simplistic, it's a little bit basic, but when you're looking for a comic like this is what you want. You don't need it to be this overly complex plot. You want these characters to fight. You want them to interact. You want to have fun with something like this. And that's what I got out of this. So I'm going to give this book an A-. It was a great time, and I cannot wait for issue 2. I already decided I was going to buy issue 2 based off of the artwork I saw in the first couple pages alone. So that tells you something right there. So there you guys have it. There are the books that I deemed worthy or not worthy. I want to know in the comments below, were there any books that I didn't discuss that you liked? And of course, guys, if you love the content, I'm going to leave you more right here to click on. In fact, did you know that the Ultimate Universe is rebooting? Yeah, if you didn't know that by now, click on this video and here are my thoughts on it. Of course, guys, keep buying, keep collecting, but always remember, read your comics.